Back on the MSG 150 at home, presented by Chase, Bill Pito, along with Monica McNutt, and look who it is. Kevin Weeks, NHL Network Analyst, and one of only 11 players to ever play for the Rangers, the Islanders, and the Devils. Kevin, can you name the other 10?
I'm going to name one, John Van Beesbrook.
Good.
Beezer.
I can't name them either. So,
Mike Dunham, fellow goalie. Mike Dunham did as well. Another goalie. So those are the three of us there in the trifecta.
There you go. Kev, you, of course, grew up with Anson Carter, and we recently had our colleague on the show to talk about the video he helped put together, some of the most prominent names and faces in the game of hockey. What's your reaction to him putting that together?
I think it was great. You know, what was great about that is not just creatively speaking, but also the message behind it, showing unity and being able to unify a lot of the voices, and not only the voices, but also mentality. I think that's something that's so important. And by getting that collaboration and that collective voice, what's so paramount where that's concerned is the fact that this is very much a Black issue for sure. It's very much a white issue for sure, but ultimately this is a human rights issue. This is a human rights 101 issue. So regardless as to where you fall on the color wheel or how many vowels are in your last name, or when you or your grandparents or your parents emigrated to this country or not, whatever the case may be, this is a human rights 101 issue. And if you aren't upset by what you've seen as a basic human being, as a fellow American, as a fellow Canadian back home, as somebody that's lived in both countries, but an American now for the last 20 years, you've got a chip missing. So I really loved what Anton was able to do because it showed a unified voice, a unified mentality with a lot of people within our game that both do and also don't look like us. And that helps to amplify that message.
I love that, Kevin. That's awesome. But back in November, we heard from Akeem Aliu. You mentioned, we just talked about Anson Carter's video that he put together. How can the NHL move forward in a tangible way? I mean, we've heard other leagues talk about getting more Black and diverse owners in place or coaches in place. How can the NHL move this thing forward in a sincere way?
You know, great question. The main thing for me is this starts at grassroots, and being a benefactor coming through the grassroots program, because nobody's born in NHLville, just the way nobody's born in NBAville or NFLville or MLBville. We all come through the grassroots program. So starting at a grassroots hockey level, and the reason why I say that is if you look at sport as a pyramid, the apex of that pyramid is the NHL, the MLB, NFL, et cetera, NBA. That's only in our league 750 players. So you got to start at the base. The base is where young girls and young boys start the game. That's where a lot of their parents have their first introduction to the game in certain instances as well. And in those arenas, grassroots all across the world, but let's start here in the United States with USA Hockey, back up in Canada with Hockey Canada. Those arenas need to be safe. They need to be inclusive with capital letters and the IN, as in all in terms of inclusivity. And it doesn't matter, again, if your parents are Italian, Greek, Portuguese, Russian, Native Indian, Asian, white American, doesn't matter. For every single person that enters the doors into every arena at a grassroots level, they need to feel proud of who they are. They need to feel proud of what they are. They need to feel proud of where they're from and not feel less than, not feel belittled, not be marginalized, not be degraded in any way, shape, or form. And that's on the hockey associations across the board. And the reason why I say that's so important, Monica and Bill, is because at the end of the day, that's their first experience with the game, per se, for them playing. And we don't want to lose young girls and boys to play. We don't want to lose a family member, a grandma who comes to an arena because she's wearing a hijab or she's wearing a sari, or maybe she isn't fluent in English or whatever the case may be, or she's from a small town, or she's Caribbean like me. You don't want to lose those kids. We don't know where the game can take them. So we don't want to lose boys and girls at that level. That's the first tangible step that starts at the grassroots. But to answer you, that has to come from Commissioner Bettman and Deputy Commissioner Bill Daley, from the top of the mountain all the way back down to the mountain. That has to be a directive.
Kevin, very well said. We, of course, know about the NHL's return to play and the structure In the NBA, Kyrie Irving's been very critical of the NBA's plan. How come we haven't heard any criticism among NHL players about the NHL's return to play scheme?
Because right now we have our return to play, and it's more of an umbrella. It isn't as concrete because there are a lot of moving parts right now. It isn't necessarily as concrete. The cities, the hub cities have not been officially named, although a lot of people suspect that Vegas is one out west. We were waiting to see what was going to happen back in Canada because we do have 7 teams that are back north of the border. And in looking at what that looks like, we had to wait to see what Prime Minister Trudeau said back in Canada because there had been a quarantine that had been in effect for people coming into the country, which logistically would not have made sense time-wise by way of our players on those said Canadian teams and or players that are from Europe or here in the United States that are going back to play in Canada. So from a timing perspective, that wouldn't have made sense. But Prime Minister Trudeau said yesterday that quarantine will no longer be effective in this instance, effectively making 3 Canadian cities, Toronto, my hometown, Vancouver, and Edmonton, among those that are vying to be one of the hub cities. So I think from the NBA standpoint as well, Commissioner Silver has come out and identified that they will be playing at Disney. A lot of the details around what that looks like have come forward. And then I would also say this, that's a 70% black league as well. And those players have a lot of cachet. They have a lot of international global exposure and value. And that's on a monetary side, but also on the human side, which I come back to, a human 101. This affects so many more of their player population in terms of their family members, in terms of their communities, in terms of their AAU teams that they played for, in terms of a lot of the businesses that either them or family members frequent or patronize and or own. So I think that strength in numbers, and it's a little bit more hard hitting at a 70 percentile league, and it's a little bit more hard hitting and closer to home with a lot of those players. And therefore you've heard the likes of Kyrie and others become a lot more vocal about the NBA's plan.
Kevin, as we begin to sort of look ahead to some potential competition and matchups when Commissioner Bettman and the league is able to resume play safely, Rangers, they recently have had the upper hand against the Canes. When you think of that matchup, what becomes the biggest key?
You know what'll be interesting is the contrast in styles. I think for the Rangers, they're so ahead of schedule this year. Full disclosure, my agent Paul Theophanis has Artemi Panarin, and the bread man, as he's known, the bread man, Artemi Panarin, has been baking a lot of loaves here. I got to tell you what.
Are you sharing some of the commission on that contract?
I better be getting a little piece. I got to tell Theo I better get a piece because I'm going to tell you this, man. Panarin, as far as New York sports, tell me a better free agent signing in the last how long than Artemi Panarin. Like, he's right there with Leon Draisaitl from Edmonton for the league MVP right now. He's been incredible. Zibanejad has become a star here in New York as well. What a great acquisition by Jeff Gordon. And the defense has been way better than we thought it would have been. Tony DeAngelo's finally become what people thought he was going to be when he was first drafted. Fox coming in, signing with the Rangers has been great. He's a candidate for Rookie of the Year. And all things being equal, you know, they have three goalies, and Shesterkin has been better than advertised. Georgiev has played well. And Hank, the future Hall of Famer, my boy Henrik, this creates a little bit of a conundrum for head coach Quinn right now, because Hank does have that experience and he has been skating. Let's turn the page to Carolina, because I did play for both teams. My former teammate, Rod Brindamore, who's a future Hall of Famer himself, has done a great job with that team. And when I say the contrast in styles, I look at the high-end skill and the dynamic kind of skill making and playmaking that the Rangers have versus the kind of work ethic wolf pack mentality that the Carolina Hurricanes have. They don't have as many elite game breakers per se, Carolina. But one thing that I do know is Roddy's still a Greek god in terms of how he's built, their head coach, and he leads by example. Those guys know that he's got a 5% body fat to this day. If that, he's shredded, hand carved. And that
no quarantine 15 for Rod Brindamore, huh, Kevin?
No. No. He's hand carved. He's literally chiseled out. And but that impact that he's had with his work ethic, you know, a lot of the coaches sometimes will be like, we got to do this, we got to do that, and they don't do that. He lives what he preaches, and that team works exceptionally hard. So it'll be a nice contrast of styles. I think that's going to be a very, very entertaining first-round matchup.
How about the Islanders against the Panthers, Kev?
Well, for the Islanders, you know, playing for the great Lou Lamoriello, who is the architect of the Devils, and he's now over with the Islanders, and Barry Trotz, their great coach. They're a team that's structured. The Islanders are at their best when they're playing sound defensively and they're forcing the opposing team to take risks that they otherwise wouldn't because of frustration, because Islanders team defense. Now, they've got great goaltending on a nightly basis. Matthew Barzal is one of the most exciting young players. He's one of the best young players in all of New York sports, along with Aaron Judge, of course, of the Yanks, and Alonso of the Mets. But they're fun. They're still a fun team when they get going. They're just not as dynamic offensively. In the case of the Florida Panthers, though, the Panthers, as this season have gone on, they've gotten better and better. I just saw them down in South Florida for Roberto Luongo's jersey retirement night. I saw them up close, and I saw them when they were here at the Garden. And they've started to defend better, but they're more of an offensive team. So, again, a nice contrast in styles. But their head coach, both coaches have won a Stanley Cup, of course, in Barry Trotz in Washington. But Joel Quenneville, Florida's coach, has won 5 cups. It's a lot of cups.
All right, Kev, you have a clothing line called No 5 Hole. And the question is, do I need a little improvement in my look here? Can you help
Your
me
look
out?
clean. Your look is clean. Mark,
You
you're about to jump in. Go ahead. What do you have?
You should know that this is an upgrade from Pito, because usually we get the Under Armour or the Nike athletic half zip. Today it looks like we got a little polo over there.
No polo. But can you send me some of your stuff, Kev, or what?
You elevated. Yeah, I can definitely do that.
Monica,
yeah.
too.
Yeah, well, exactly. I can certainly do that. I know you'll rock it, and it'll be in good hands. So yeah, we do our hats in collaboration with New Era, which is, the best hat company in the world. They're based in Buffalo, the great New Era, who does all the MLB hats, and they're the best in the business. So our hats we do in conjunction with them. We do hoodies, tees, sweatshirts. We've done so many different players across different sports that have been kind enough to rock the brand. And so many fans, not here only in Metro New York, but around the world, literally from Switzerland, Japan, Russia, Finland, Sweden, Czech Republic, UK. I can go on and on. So what's been difficult for us right now is supply chain, especially when you're a small business owner during COVID and logistics. That's been challenging. So we've pivoted more towards content. And you probably catch me on my IG, on my Instagram, @KevWeeks. We've been doing more content. But once we come through COVID, we'll be back on the map and get back to what we do.
All right, Kev. Hey, it's so awesome to have you on.
Thank
Great
you.
to see you, and we'll talk to you soon, all right?
Thanks so much. Great having you too. Thank you both. Stay healthy and stay safe.
All right, Kevin Weeks, former Islander, Devil, and Ranger, currently an analyst on NHL Network. And we're back with more on the MSG 150 at Home, presented by Chase, right after this.